this part of the year. The good news is we're best that I can figure out based on bills from last year and what we can expect to come in. We're in pretty decent shape with that, but I'm still going to need to come back for probably around an extra $6,000 to get us through the rest of the fiscal year through June. I kind of put a $1,000 cushion in addition to that, so I was going to go with $6,700, but you know, through some creative scheduling and reducing our coverage on a couple things, we can probably get through with the 5,700.
So I clear to understand that the original budget didn't include time to cover Fall Festival?
I tried last year to get that and didn't get it. I brought it up last year at my budget meeting. We were looking, there are certain events that are impact on manpower and we're not budgeted for it. We can't charge these groups because I actually brought that up. I said, well, can we charge them as, you know, for like a detail rate, and they don't have the money in their budget to support that, and that's understandable. So we support it out of our budget.
Well, certainly of all the things that happen in town, the Fall Festival is certainly, in my eyes, would always certainly be a community event.
Absolutely.
In 100 different ways, it's supported by the town because every group in town is supported by Fall Festival.
Sure. And I took that into account as far as when I met with the committee, and I asked them about that, and they said, well, we don't have the money for that. And I said, okay, that's fine. You know, it's a town event, we'll support it. But in order to do it properly and to make sure that not only the residents but also the many visitors that come into town are protected, we need to have a significant, you know, a decent amount of people working that day to take care of traffic flow. So we were lucky because we actually had one of our volunteer auxiliaries that spent some time at one of our traffic posts, so that freed us up a little bit of manpower. But when you have that many people coming into town, you know, you need to establish a bit of a presence, and you need to let people know they're safe, and you need to make sure that we're visible to people driving through so that they don't go crazy. And we also have one officer that was assigned as basically a patrol lieutenant, so we need to do that as well. And, you know, they overlap their duties to drive up and down Main Street and give us that visibility. But traffic posts alone, there was, you know, 3 of them.
Chief, I have a quick question. Maybe I misunderstood you, but did you say your normal payroll is around $1,200, but for that week it was $2,000, so the delta is $800?
Yeah, it's roughly that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So that attributed to the Fall Festival is about $800.
Right.
Okay.
No, that's not what he said. He
Well-
said Fall Festival was $2,200.
The payroll.
Well, the payroll for that covered that period was 22.
Oh, covered that
No,
period.
that was an off.
So it's
Okay.
a difference.
So about
Oh, you're
928.
right.
928?
Right.
Okay.
That's not what I heard. That's not, I wasn't receiving it.
Okay.
I apologize.
I didn't probably make this.
And all these special events that we do, like Substitute and National Night Out, we've got numerous people asking for us to do more with the kids and get out and do more community policing. We're trying to answer that call, be out there and be seen and make it more of a community policing police department. But it does cost money to do that.
There are a number of events in town, Fall Festival being one, probably more Memorial Day Parade, and probably something else I haven't thought of, that technically come under private, but that the town wants to support by voting money to have the police officers in town cover that from the town budget, as opposed to those who are running a special event having to pay for detail.
Okay.
And so in the fall, it was, and Ron probably remembers too, it was 1 or 2 weeks before Fall Festival, and the chief came to us and said, I don't have money in the budget for this. And the 3 of us sat here and said, okay, we've got to cover it, and we'll figure it out in the spring. So here you are. Is that what you remember, Ron?
That is.
And when I had my budget meeting last year, I made it pretty clear that I felt that the budgeted amount for part-time officers was going to be insufficient just because of the things we were trying to do and try to support. So I was pretty much on the record last year saying I was going to have to come back in the spring in one month. You know,
when you, town meeting voted the budget, and you started into the year, and you saw that, you didn't have to have a presence at Fall Festival. And I'm not being facetious by asking this, because the question will be asked. But what did you, were there any management decisions you could have made 3 months into the year to manage it for the other 9 months so there wouldn't be a $6,700 shortfall?
probably not, and I'll explain why. We get a lot of demands for different types of things, and one example is during the summer, once the warm weather comes, on Saturday and Sunday during the day, there's a complaint about motorcycles racing through town. So while I normally probably wouldn't schedule somebody for those 2 days during the day, in response to the demand, we did that. And I couldn't pull the officer from the evening to cover that because conversely, we were getting complaints from the outskirts of town about underage drinking parties and things of that nature, speeding cars. And we saw that incident that happened just after graduation with the accident. We've also had some pretty significant accidents in town over the past year. So we're trying to kind of increase our presence in our, enforcement and things of that nature. So it's kind of hard to take away from one. We're trying to spread ourselves around, but I mean, realistically, we only have officers working nights 2 nights a week. That's Friday and Saturday. The rest of the week is uncovered. We have to rely on the state police. The state police, they're in the same boat we're in. They only have 3 troopers that cover how many towns?
24.
24 towns. They usually one officer this side of 91, on the other side and one on 91. And the officer on 91 covers from Vermont down to Ashfield, right?
Deerfield.
Deerfield.
And there's 1 trooper on the desk and 1 trooper for all area towns in Franklin County.
So it's, we're trying to be a good partner with the state police too, and try and have people out there as much as we can within the realm of the budget. As I said, I came here last year and I said we were going to have a problem, and I didn't feel that we were being funded sufficiently. So.
And we did have a problem last year because at the end of the year, if I have this correct by memory, we didn't pay people. And we can't do that again this year.
What do you mean we didn't pay people?
I believe, based on my conversation with town council, that would not be a route that she would want us to do again. But the decision was made at the time that if they paid them the last payroll, then the budget would have gone negative, and we hadn't done anything to prevent that from happening with either a special town meeting or whatever we could do at the end of the year without a special town meeting. And so they didn't get paid, they got paid later, and you, by law, can't do that.
So they got paid out of 13's budget for work they did in 12.
It got fixed, but after the fact for that year, if I'm not mistaken. But the day you should have got paid, you didn't get paid, the police department.
So that, whatever that was, $1,000 or $1,600, sucked an extra $1,600 out of this year's budget.
I think it was resurrected, it was fixed out of
Yeah, we
the
don't
proper
have-
budget. It
right.
was fixed out of the proper budget, but the money wasn't there, and it was gonna go negative. So we had to make an adjustment.
And I can't remember whether we did it with a transfer of funds or.
We did something after the
At the
fact,
end
so
of
that
the
they
year,
could get
but we
paid
wouldn't have.
for that. But
I'm
my
not sure
concern
what
was they
happened.
didn't get paid.
Right, I'm looking at
And I know we
the,
can't do that again, because town council said that.
right, I'm looking at the payroll for the first 2 pay periods of the year, fiscal year, July 16th and August 1st, and they were average, it was like
Right.
1256 and 1248, so it doesn't look
We
like
resolved it with
it
it.
came out, yeah, it was resolved somehow.
Right, but it was awkward.
Right.
It was not something to repeat.
And the other thing I will say also is, Diane does a lot of work on her own time. I mean, we're very fortunate that, you know, she does do that, because if she billed us for everything she does, you guys would fire me. You know what I mean? She spends a lot of time, spends a lot of hours working on things, and it's because she thinks it's important for the town to do it.
So your
Just wanted to-
recommendation for what we should be asking for to get your budget through?
Well, like I said, I went through today and I looked at my expenses from last year. The only thing I can see that's a definite that's coming up is we have to pay for our records management system, the quarterly payment, which is just over $270. So other than that, we should be able to cover the rest of it with,
You got $5,200 and some odd dollars.
right, 5,200. I'm gonna guess we'll have 4,900 that we could put towards reserve wages. And then I just want, based on the average, I figured out we spend, which is $1,220 a week. I figured we would need about,
$1,220 a week or $1,220?
1220 a day here, I'm sorry. 1220 every 2 weeks. That we would need about $5,700 to get us through the rest of the year, covering.
Above and beyond the 5,000 that you have been.
Right, exactly. Because we have 9 pay periods left, and based on that average of 1220 a pay period, that comes out to $10,980. If you take the 5243 off that, comes out to 5736.
So that's roughly 12% more than what was voted last year at town meeting.
Yep. I'm not happy about it, trust me.
Well, I'm noticing that we voted $5,000 for police department fuel, and you have $2,900 left in that account. Where's that gonna sugar off here?
Well, I've only gotten, I believe, 2 bills so far this year. From Tom, I probably have another one coming soon, but they've been averaging right around $800-900. So I'm assuming,
A month, 3 months?
no, whenever he gives it to me. There's
Tom,
no-
how often do you send
It's
them?
usually every 3 months or
It's gonna be
so.
like 3 months.
Quarterly.
It might go
He's got a
over,
system. He doesn't know it, but he's got a system.
it might go over that a little bit, but generally it's about every 3 months. So I'm assuming I should have another bill coming soon. And they've been averaging around 900, 950. It may be down a little bit because with the winter weather, we're not out quite as much. So we may have, my guess is maybe $1,000, $1,500 left in that at the end of the year. Well, I can't even estimate that, to be honest with you.
I'd like to say something about the coverage for the accidents and stuff happening. It's getting around that people are knowing that we don't have officers out during the nighttime a lot. And the troopers can't sit up here and do radar because they're covering so many other towns. So people know that there's no radar going on, so they're going faster and faster and faster. And they know the officers aren't working because we don't have the money. So they realize it. And it's just going to get worse because they realize there's no officers.
So if there's an accident in town and we don't have officers on duty and the state police come, do we end up having to do the paperwork, or it's all
No.
theirs?
State police, like for example, that accident a couple weeks ago up on, by Dell's house, that was the state police did that. And to be honest with you, because of the seriousness of that accident, even if we had somebody working, they probably would have investigated it anyways through their accident discretion. We've had some pretty significant accidents, most of them related to speed this year.
I just know we're not out there.
Sometimes a favorite question is, I heard one time, the guy wasn't acting quite right. The boss said to him, he said, "Are you ignorant or apathetic?" The fellow says, "I don't know and I don't care."
There you go.
So, you don't know, if they don't know that you're not out there, they wouldn't care even if you were.
Possible.
How about police vehicle? Are we, with the new cruiser, Are we all done? That's paid for, the lights are working, everything's good?
Yeah, it's working out real well. It's held its own through the snow this year, working real well. If we had to explore a few things ahead of your snow.
So there is $1,800 left in that account that we appropriated for
For the cruiser?
for the cruiser.
I'll take it. Yeah, no, that's working, car's working out great. Right now, so thank you very much to the town, because it's worked out really good. Get a lot of compliments on the public as well, as far as it
And there's nothing we're missing on it that we planned for. Because I knew there was some extra, after the purchase of the vehicle, there were some things that had to be done that would be paid to somebody else, if I recall. But they're all in place, right? Radios or something had to be moved.
No, they moved
They moved them?
Yeah, everything, I think it was out the door. We did have some unexpected repairs at the store for the wheel bearing ABS sensor, which went in a snowstorm.
So you rounded up about $2,700.
About $2,700.
The only, for the rest of the year, short of getting that additional money, the only thing we can do is cut down the night patrols, I believe, just one right there. The downside to that is the officers that get those hours, be able to go somewhere or someplace where they can get hours. That's always my fear. We've got a very good staff right now, and my concern is that if we don't support them by giving them, a decent amount of hours. And they're not asking for a ton, believe me, that they work elsewhere. So, get through the whole process, we have to get new people on and orient them. It's a slippery slope.
Are there any issues with tires or anything like that that have to be changed, spring comes, or?
The only repair that we have to get done, if you want to call it that, is the interceptors due for an oil change. And because of being a new vehicle, it's synthetic oil, so that has to be done. We have to replace it with synthetic oil, which is more expensive. And we're probably going to get that done at the dealer because it was under warranty, so I just assume we're going to do it. As opposed to be over the highway or place we take it.
So $6,700 at your expense should get you through with not a lot to spare, but
Total of 6,700?
yes,
It will be really close.
it'll be close enough so you can manage it. You got March, April, May, and June. You got 4 months. You got a third of a year. I mean, if you need to manage $700 or $800, there must be room for that in there. I would hope.
It may impact something like coverage from Memorial Day Parade or something like that. We only have to cover with one guy instead of three. And once again, it comes down to the safety issue. But, I mean, if we have to make it, that's what it is. It's saying it is what it is.
Ron, what do you?
Well, I'm just trying to follow your line of thinking. You're saying that there's $1,791 here available from the police cruiser and then $1,000 out of the fuel?
Roughly.
So there's $2,791 available to meet a shortfall of $57.
Well, we gotta decide what the shortfall is. I just said 67, and he's saying that, people will be run over and required their parade. So I don't.
Yeah.
Well, since we found, I'm rounding it to 27, because then it comes out an even 4. And we're looking for 4 to get that 67, and then
I guess
It's
I'm
just a
looking
matter
for
of,
some guidance from you guys on how much we should be thinking about putting in to this account. The other thing, Chief, on Wednesday night, try to break that budget down. I mean, the stuff that you're short on this year, make sure you drill it into our and the finance committees, so we can figure out where this budget really needs to be.
Right. The one wild card that I will say as far as the rest of the year is if we get one complex investigation like we had before, it'll kill it. It'll absolutely kill it.
And the board did vote when you had to bring in the other
Yes.
female officer for that investigation. It
Right.
came to us and we voted, we knew there would be an expense in there. So when you take a couple of these things that weren't planned for.
I guess my question to you is, originally, we added up the numbers, it was 5,700. And then, did I hear you say another $1,000 to cover?
Well, I was looking for a cushion, which.
So that brought us to the
should-
6,700.
Right,
Right?
yeah.
And then I see 2,700 that's available here. So you're looking for 4,000 to safely get you through the year with a little cushion,
Right.
and even probably could afford some investigation and so on and so forth, because you have
Right,
an extra
yeah,
$1,000 there.
Right, exactly.
And if it was lean, it would be, instead of 4,000, it'd be 3,000, that holds your feet to the
Right.
fire in a difficult way.
And I just want to assure you guys that I'm not, because where I get this, hey, it's, Halloween, let's go out and go crazy. I mean, we're still only going to be providing the most basic type of coverage. It's not like I'm going to say, okay, we can help with people outside, 7 nights a week. That's not realistic. I'm just trying to operate with what I know is going, because I know once April rolls around and the motorcycles are out, we're going to be here. Because we heard it last year, we're going to be same thing, Friday and Saturday night. We're out drinking, partying, going crazy, spinning their tires. We don't have anybody available. State police are not probably going to respond to those calls. So we hear about them on Monday morning. So I'm just trying to be a little proactive as far as those things. And then just have a cushion just in case something happens. Because, last year we didn't have, I don't think we had anything major that came down last year. This year we had 2 in 3 weeks, which took up a significant amount of hours, and some of which was worked on their own time as well. So they didn't even bill for everything they did. So.
Well, we're working on this special town meeting for the 13th.
Right.
So,
Just one other question I can think of. In terms of the fuel consumption, are there any patterns that you've seen? Should we expect the next bill that you would get for 3 months to be in any way significantly different than, or does it pretty much balance
It's
out?
pretty close. You take it over, two periods, it's probably, you may get a fluctuation this time, it may be lower, just simply because we've had, the heavier snow and haven't been driving as much.
Okay.
And we try not to put a couple miles on it anyway. We do, a lot of stationary, monitor traffic, monitor everything. So I don't anticipate that the gas will go up between now and June.
except for the price.
Except for the price. Yes.
When we're getting that bulk fuel in, being a municipality, we're not paying any federal or state tax on that, right, Tom? No tax?
You have to pay the total state tax.
We do?
You didn't hear? So if we took 1791, and then whatever the difference is to round that to be 2,700, we would take the 4 from free cash at this time?
I did talk, I was going over this in my spare time, because it had something to do on my spare time. But there is an account that I asked the tax collector. There is a balance of $20,089 in tax title expenses. And she assured me that $4,000 could come from that. So that instead of sucking free cash down before we even get into the fiscal 14 budget, that she would be very comfortable with $4,000 less than that.
Is that one of those that doesn't get depleted every year, it just rolls forward and she doesn't use it, so that's how effective we have to be?
No, you had a special town meeting where you appropriated $12,989 on top of the $7,500 original.
Which one's that?
But she doesn't think.
Tax title expense.
Where's it?
It's on.
I don't know if she did that because she saw something
I think
on the horizon.
I think she was threatening and then they came through.
So whatever she saw that she thought might be happening, cleared up, so.
So 7,500.
Let's see, this was an additional vote,
Yeah,
so that leaves a balance right now of 20,000 change.
so we could comfortably take
We
that.
could comfortably take $4,000 out of that. So that would be my recommendation, but we can talk about that more when we get to that on the agenda. So we'll see you again on Wednesday. If you don't have anything else for us right now. I think you've had a pretty successful night. Sounds like you might be even batting 100. Don't get used to it.
No, if you take it over 2 years, I'm definitely not that.
All right.
But, the only other thing, if I could bring it up real quick, I went to this leadership seminar a couple weeks ago, it was run by the FBI down in Connecticut, and it was a really great program. Dr. Henry Lee, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, he's one of the best forensic scientists in the country, used to be the head of the crime lab in Connecticut. He did a talk, really fun guy. And then we also got some inside information on Sandy Hook from the state police colonel. And probably a little more in there than I really wanted to know, to be honest with you. It was a tough couple of days after that, but really worthwhile, really good seminar. Glad I went, and got to network with some really good people down there. It's really good connections. And as an aside, I was the only police chief from Western Mass. So, nobody else in the western part of the state. So, I mean, we're national.
I ought to put another ring on our halo.
So we're getting some good publicity now. So, I sent a press release to Channel 3 in Springfield, did a story on it, and
Yes, the link to that was emailed.
yeah, and I did something, I sent it to the recorder, they never put anything in, so but it was really worthwhile program, really good. There's a lot of other
Good news. That's why it wasn't in, it was good news.
They usually put like good news in, so I don't know.
Maya sent something around, I forget if I got it yesterday or today, but I printed it out. They've got different training, you may have gotten a copy of it also, I was just looking through because some of them are local and whether it's of interest to either, there's all kinds of things having to do with legal, law enforcement, or even training for, bucket truck training,
He doesn't have that budgeted.
to do the training.
Can I get one?
With Maya,
And I think,
Yeah, I got that list.
I think I said,
Yeah, you
to
did.
do fire department and highway.
Mary Ann Marino sent me in as well, so yeah.
So you got
I got it.
lots of
I got it
copies.
twice. So there is some, the problem with training is very little of it's free, so we try and find as much of free stuff as we
so is the
can.
Maya stuff free or are they charging us?
No, I think my stuff is free.
My stuff is free. Anyway, I just happened to look at it. I didn't-
Yeah, most of the
Didn't
training
know if
costs
everybody
money and
got
it's
that.
all east of Worcester, so.
Yeah, there were free, there were some webinars and there were a few that were local, either Springfield or Pittsfield or something.
Yeah,
Didn't know if it'd be of interest to anybody.
always looking for free stuff.
We all set with the chief? Sounds great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Corporal, I'd like to thank you for your extra effort there. I've seen you in town hall quite a bit, especially for that night out.
Yeah, that was
Fair.
fun to do.
Thank you for that.
Took a lot though. Took a real while. We're gonna start earlier this year.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Poisson, you're next on the agenda. What do you want to talk about first? You got your tree warden hat on or your highway department hat?
Here.
Okay, let's talk about the tree warden.
Okay. You only have $500 left in the account. A while back, I was talking at a special town meeting, earlier, I had, we talked about putting $4,200 into that account, and that along with the 500, thinking was give us about 3 days worth of tree work, which would be entirely removing hazardous trees or portions of hazardous trees. And it provides 3 days worth of that work. As you probably know from going around town, we're really falling behind on removal of hazardous trees or dead trees and that type of thing. They're really piling up. So,
How much fussing is there normally when you go mark a bunch of trees to come down?
some, but with these ones that we're talking about are pretty much totally dead or have no future at all. So I don't think that'll be an issue.
And the landowners seem to
Yeah,
agree?
yeah. When it comes to
But these are only trees that are in the right of way.
Exactly. We had 2 trees on Smith Road. There was 3 trees that were removed, but only 2 of them that town paid for. Large cottonwood trees. And that kind of was a big hit in the budget this year because they were so big that we had to use a crane. So it cost us like $3,500 to get those 2 trees out of there. But they were bad and they were threatening not only the public way, but the residents' home. So we got that taken care of, but that was. And the other thing is, you know, the last couple of years, we've been budgeting $4,000 for tree work, and I think as we all know, we've talked about it several times, that's not really adequate for what needs to really be done.
The power company saved us a lot of money a year ago, right?
Yeah, they were doing good. But they got discouraged a little bit.
They got discouraged?
Yeah. With some of the feedback that they were receiving.
I guess I missed that.
Yeah, it was-
I mean, I saw a picture in the paper, somebody was crying about a rotten tree being cut down. And they had that picture of the rotten tree right on the front page of the paper.
Yeah, that was part of that whole story. But they are still, well, we looked at several trees a while back and we thought they were gonna come back and take care of some of them. They haven't been back yet. So, I don't know when, you know, I stay in contact with them and they have agreed to do some more, but they haven't been here yet. But there's plenty, the ones we're talking about are ones that they would not do because they're not threatening their
Power.
power lines, but they are threatening public ways.
You've done some work with the tree committee too, haven't
Yes.
you? Yeah. Yeah.
But this is not, this would be, this really isn't in there.
Is that a committee that the select board actually gave a charge to and formed, or is that kind of a volunteer advisory group that?
No, I think the select board gave a, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly what the charge was, but it was as a result of some of this power company work.
There was concerns about which trees were coming down and all that, so. the
And
tree
that's
committee-
the challenge that you're referring to, that the power company had, or Ashfield when they were in town.
Right.
And so they asked to have some participation, basically just to know what was happening. I think some of it may have been the surprise of it. When people don't adapt as quickly to change as one might think, so.
Yeah, I know, wait for an ice storm to come and take your electricity out, right? And then everybody hears about how they don't react well to change.
Right. So So I think part of the tree committee was maybe to get some of what was gonna happen as well, known. So if you know what's gonna happen, it's not like you drive down the street and suddenly that beautiful tree you loved is all gone. So it was just to help with the process, I believe, more than they weren't going to stop.
So it stopped the process. It sounds to me like the tree company's not coming back to town.
The tree
Well, I don't see
committee
that
happened
not
after
coming
the
back.
fact.
Haven't been back recently.
They stalled. They're having hiccups. They found other places. They're probably more welcome.
Yeah, that could be it.
But I think the tree committee happened after the fact. No, all the work had been done before the tree
No,
committee.
Didn't the dead trees out here what initiate the tree committee to have those?
And they planted new
replanted
trees.
and done?
That's right.
If I remember, it was right about that time
Right.
that was brought into effect.
I've got kind of a policy that I don't accept a lot of discussion from the floor, so.
I'm just trying to clarify.
But anyway, so
He's-
the other thing I should just mention is, probably you remember some of this, Tom, but, I think the other thing leading up to that we're falling behind, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think we're seeing some effects still from the 2008 ice storm. Some of these trees are dying off. We see that on Study Lane, well, all over town. I've noticed that some of the ones that were heavily damaged on Study Lane are now dying. And the other thing is, like in '07, for example, we were using $7,800 appropriating. In '08, 5,000, in '09, 7,500, in '10, 7,500, and then the last couple of years we've been at 4,000. And it just realistically isn't enough to do.
Going backwards fast.
Yeah, we're kind of cutting it in half when we should be doubling that. Tree work has not gone down in price in the last 10 years.
So if we cut a tree down in the right-of-way area, and let's say if it was cut up nicely, someone could burn it, which means that it's actually firewood, can we sell it? Does it belong to the property owner where that right-of-way is? What do we normally do with that? Are there any funds to be gained there?
Well, the first thing is we usually let the abutter have it if they want it.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, there's not much value to it until it's processed into firewood. And thirdly, a lot of them are beyond what people want to deal with for firewood. Some of them are real big trunks. Some of the tops and stuff are good. Abutters do take them and break them up into firewood. But the other expense we have at times is to haul these big, the butt logs and stuff away. They're just,
That's what I was gonna ask, so we have to take that away if nobody wants
at
it.
times, unless, depending on who the abutter is, if they have a way of dealing with it. It's more and more, years ago when there was more farmers in town, they would drag it off themselves. And times have changed a little bit about that.
So the select board had a plan that kind of got dropped to appropriate $4,200 previously?
Yes, there was a town meeting scheduled in December for December 11th, and that was one of the articles. That special town meeting ended up getting canceled because there wasn't a quorum for the select board on the night it would have had to be signed to meet the posting date. We did end up having a later special town meeting in December, but by the time the one was canceled and the other was done, that one only addressed one issue, and it was not this article. So that article had been to the select board and through the finance committee process. If the meeting had happened where the warrant was signed, it would have gone ahead. That didn't happen.
Got a recommendation?
Yeah. What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is however much money we can afford to put into this, put into it. We can put in 25,000, we can put in 75,000, we can put in 4,200, anything will help. There's plenty of work to be done. I said, the 4,200 was gonna buy us 3 days, more work to hopefully get done within this fiscal year.
Is this after winter goes away? I mean, because you can't be cutting trees and plowing at the same time kind of thing, but
Yeah, well, most all of this work will be an outside contractor comes in and does this work for us. Because it involves aerial lift trucks and climbers, hospitals.
It'd be a tree service.
Yeah. So sometimes we do it in winter, but sometimes not.
so you've got a priority list of which ones have to go first, second, or third?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're talking about the 2 trees, right? You said there's 2 trees?
No, the 2 trees have already been done.
Oh,
That's Smith
That
Road.
was what, and that was a big hit on our $4,000 budget. So that's why we're back here talking about this.
So with this money, are there already a list of priority of like, there's 1, 2, or 3 more trees that if you had the money, those are the ones to go first? You know exactly which one's gotta go.
And it'll be, you know, depending on the trees, some, we'll be able to do several. Sometimes we can do 6 or 8 or trees a day, and other ones, maybe you can only do 1. It's all has with the size of the tree, the location of the tree, and
It seems like his average budget was $7,500 to $8,000 anyways, and it looks like a shortfall of about $4,200 if you want to split hairs that way, and I think we should look for something on that magnitude.
I was just still trying to figure out which trees, with the 4,200, you already know which trees need to go next. Like you had the 2 on Smith Road that had to go. Do we already,
Next
so
ones?
we know which ones they are? Because you said there's sometimes it might be 6 trees, sometimes 2 or 3. We must have some idea which ones are the most important ones or the most dangerous ones, or something that are outstanding right now.
right, there's 1 on Bellis Road, there's 3 or 4 on Steady Lane, there's probably a dozen, 15 on Steady Lane, but there's 3 or 4 that would have higher priority.
Okay.
They're kind of town-wide. There's 1 on Lindsay Road, some of Bear Swamp. You can't drive down the road and not find one.
So is this 4,200 enough to get rid of those first 3 trees that are a priority
Yes,
right now?
yes.
Oh, that's what I was trying to figure out how much.
So we'll get rid of probably some. Like I say, certain trees, tree company can come in and we'll spend a day on as many done in a day as we can. Some days we can get 10, 12, other days it's a couple, depends on.
Where they are around town.
Right.
Try to get them to work a neighborhood.
Yeah, we try to work the spot. You get on someone, if you're on a big tree over on Buckland Road or one of the big oaks there, that could be a day, something like that.
So if we gave you 4,500 and you got 500 in the account right now, what would that give you 2 days with the tree
3
service?
days. 3 days, with the 4,200 would provide us with 3 days.
So they're just basically charging us by the hour,
Yeah.
so to speak, and not by the tree, yeah,
Right.
okay.
That's found to be the better way to do it, because if you do it by tree, you gotta look at every tree, well, this one's gonna cost 500, this one's gonna cost 200, this, and we don't want to do that.
I'll make the motion that we try to get them $4,500.
I'll second that.
We can work that when we get to the warrant agenda item, we can figure out where we're gonna get that. But that would give them $5,000.
Right, and he said the 42 gives him 3 days, so that leaves him a little bit.
No,
In
I
case
said
a tree goes
45
down.
and the 5 that he has is 5,000. He said that would be 3 days.
And
Yeah.
so you want 45, not 42?
Right. That's what I was suggesting, trying to get him to 5,000.
It's okay, I just thought he said the 42 got him 3 days, and I thought we were giving him a little extra, because if something goes wrong and something happens, you
The
have a
$5,000
day.
would be,
$5,000 would be awesome.
yeah.
Say yes, that would be yes. All right,
So the motion
so
is
that's a motion that
I'll second it.
4,500?
Any other discussion on trees? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. All right. Now let's put your highway superintendent hat on.
Okay. This is, what I was told that we wanted to talk about. So what this is telling me basically is we have a balance of winter roads, $24,000. But realistically, because of some materials and a little bit of labor that hasn't been paid yet, we have 550 tons of sand and 66 tons of salt that we haven't paid for yet. So the real number to think about is we have $14,000, $14,306 left available for winter roads.
And you've taken into consideration, this 781 is the overtime labor from this last weekend.
Correct. And a little bit this morning.
Would you think that's enough sand and salt to get us through, since the 1st of March is right around the corner and it's hard to tell?
It's very hard to tell. It's good. That's what I hope. I hope we don't spend any of this $14,000. I've had enough. But
Probably not.
I don't know. I guess like I say, anything can happen with winter roads.
Well, we're gonna have a little bit of something here in the next couple of days, right?
Right. My suggestion was that we prepare to deficit spend if need be, but and cross our fingers and hope that we don't need to. But I just want to be prepared to in case we come, all of a sudden we get another, all of a sudden we turn on TV some morning and they got a forecast that we're going to get a blizzard over the weekend.
Well, here's my question. General highway, you have a balance of just shy of $23,000. When spring comes and you need to buy gravel and patch, how much does that buy today? I know it buys a hell of a lot less than what I used to think it bought.
Patch is around $70 a ton. And gravel, 1.5 inch crushed gravel is delivered is probably around $16 to $18 a gig. So, but the general highway covers more things now, you gotta keep in mind. There's the parts and services in there, and uniforms. I didn't bring, I didn't think we were gonna talk about general highway.
Well, no, what I'm trying to do is to think, we gotta get through winter roads, but in the past, historically, if we had an extra $20,000 at the end of winter on winter roads, we would spend that on
Right.
material to shape the roads back up and not get into general, tap into the general highway quite so hard.
Right.
And I got an idea that there are plenty of uses for the material that you could buy out of general highway on your hit list.
Right. So it'd be nice if we don't spend much of this 14 and we could use a little bit of that. That would be really good.
How's their fuel? As we were looking at the police. Because if you've only also accounted for a half year for themselves, might there be a little bit left in there later in the year that could help with the items you've been talking about?
How often do you get fuel? You get fuel, is it $12,000 at a whack, or what are we doing?
No, it's usually get fuel. It depends on the weather, but we have a couple snowstorms during the week that bring pickups. once a week, or it might be once every 2 weeks in the winter. And in the summer, it could be once every 3 weeks or once a month. So,
And how many gallons are you taking of the wax? Generally? Roughly?
700
700.
in the winter.
So that's a couple $1,000 every time they pull in the air.
Yeah. Could be. I mean, it varies so much, it's hard to.
I was just looking at the percentage, because for this time of year, if you were paying it in a consistent way, you'd be up closer to 65 to 70% utilized. So I was just wondering if there might be some left over there at the end of the year that could be used.
Well, I'm not excited about spending a lot of money, but I do think we need to manage it. I mean, if we run out of winter roads before we run out of winter, you have an excuse to deficit spend. If we run out of winter and we still have a balance, small balance in winter roads, we can spend that on salt and sand, or on patch and gravel, but we don't want to run out of general highway either.
Correct, no, absolutely not.
I mean, maybe the roads will come out of this winter just in beautiful shape.
We'll look at it.
Maybe.
The general highway is a little lower than I'd like to see it right now, but I'm comfortable thinking we're gonna be okay getting through with that. Or no concern with any significant breakdowns. And then I'm pretty comfortable there. It's just the winter roads, like I said, we don't know.
What does your average event cost you? Winter event? I know it varies, but
Average winter,
yeah.
right around what our budget is, 80,000.
No, I mean each event, each snowfall.
Oh, that varies greatly.
I mean, give me a range from low to high.
Couple $100 to 9,000.
Okay, so this is basically one event left, the 14,000.
Well, the big storm that happened, the last big storm there was around $9,800.
98, good. That's what I wanted to know.
But see, you can't really, I mean, that happened on a week. If that happened during the week, it would be a whole different story.
Yeah.
Depends how much sand we have to use and salt, depends if it's warm out, cold out, the snow's wet, back in, or dry, it blows up good, the sun comes out after the storm, or no. There's a lot of variables. It's kind of like the fuel. The fuel's a lot of fuel is driven by winter, or other significant weather events such as a tropical rainstorm or something. But, you know,
Sometimes it can be as important how the snow goes as how it came.
yeah, exactly. Could be what time of day it comes and
So what you're saying is there's no reason for us to get too excited now. I guess I wanted to say that we want to know about it ahead of time, not all of a sudden.
yeah, that's why we're talking about it. So my suggestion would be that we just be prepared to deficit spend in case we have to. Hope that we don't, and if we do have to, then we can later on address where the money's coming from. If we end up with extra money in fuel, good.
We can backfill
We
that
have
account.
that until June to take care of that. But I think we just need to be prepared in case the need comes along.
Any other questions, any comments? I want to talk about highway, anything else?
I'm all set.
The only other thing that I have on my mind is I don't need all the details, but you've got an employee that's retiring.
Oh, yes.
And do you have a plan on backfilling that account, backfilling that position?
Yes, we plan on replacing it. I should actually probably do it sometime.
Let me help you with that. The personnel board took a look at the bylaws. There may have been times when there wasn't a personnel board, just like we did for hiring the executive administrator, personnel board, according to the bylaws, need to be involved, help with the job description, probably help put out the ad, and have Tom work with us together to go over the applications, because it says basically we'd end up with a proposal put before the select board of who the applicants would be that you'd want to bring forward to have the select board hire somebody, just like we did for the executive administrator. So it's a, when there wasn't a personnel board for you to rely upon if you had to hire in the past, but there is. So we need to work together as opposed to separate.
I guess I'll have to bring myself up to speed on that because
And Dave can help you too.
it's
He's chair of the personnel.
I've been asleep.
I think
I
there's,
didn't realize that the personnel board had so much authority.
it has quite a few charges in the bylaws. And so we wanted to make sure we didn't do something different just because it's a different group of town employees, because that would not be fun. If we get such a program. So we looked it over last week, but I can talk, Dave, to her if you'd like.
I'll
I suppose.
Mary, could you?
Send your copy of the bylaws?
Yeah, let's get a copy of that, so isn't it still the understanding that the select board is the one that hires and that certainly others could recommend, but
That's exactly what I'm saying. If I made it sound differently, sorry.
still pretty sure it's the chief executive officers that were in charge of the hiring and firing.
Absolutely. It's just, it's done in concert in terms of personnel, municipal positions, all kind of thing. So it's right
I
here.
don't need to read it now, but.
No, I printed out for it because I also, we went through the handbook and it lists where other boards like hire their own and the select board's not involved. So, I got a copy.
You got a copy?
I got a copy. Want a copy here?
Ron says
Actually,
he's all set. Save a tree.
Okay.
Save a tree.
I printed it off the internet.
And then when, town clerk actually just gave me a slightly different copy, maybe in terms of the order, she did some kind of organization to it, so actually, but I might take a copy if there's any change, then I'll.
It was the one I found on the internet. Sure.
Right, so I don't know if she put that on here or not.
Can you just point me in the direction, Pauletta, where that is? Because I don't see it. I see that at the very beginning, it says the board shall assist the select board in describing the duties and responsibilities of all municipal positions, propose and review compensation plan, and so on, so handbook, job descriptions, and things like that. I don't see it. It says they will help them hire people or review applicants or anything like that.
All municipal positions.
We're under-
And so there's job descriptions to be done and stuff like that to make sure that and if he needs to change the job description, whether he's filling it identical, we should make sure we bring it up to snuff. If it already is, it is. But we've been going through them one by one as these come up, so.
But if he wasn't changing it, where would it say, just to help me out here, where would it say that process would include the personnel board?
It's, let's see.
It says propose, collect comparative data. That's about it. The board shall be invested with all powers and duties specified in Mass General Laws 41, Section 108C. Can't imagine how little that means to me by just reading it.
The board shall maintain written job description for all town positions, so we want to make sure that that is okay. That's the part
That I
that I was
understand.
speaking to it, that you just asked me about.
I just hope it doesn't turn into being more complicated than picking a new pole.
No, I think it probably went, well, that could be much more, because it was just to keep things the same as opposed to, there's different rules for town hall for hiring than there are for hiring for the highway. The consistency, the admin in the paper, the
Well,
applications
this
came
is something
in.
that we're gonna have to get on
Yep,
the agenda of
and-
both boards.
Yep, and the applications were open, they were stayed sealed, they were opened all in one night, went through them, and picked who to bring in for the first pass, and then the candidates that were chosen from that came into the select board. So,
I mean, that's,
it doesn't have to be long and laborious, but that's exactly what we've done several times for town hall.
I just would exercise some caution there. I mean, a number of months ago mentioned to Tom when he first brought it up that the personnel board was available if he wanted to, because that's how we decided at our select board, you and I, that please extend the offer to Tom if he needs the personnel board's assistance. And so when I communicated with him, he didn't say one way or the other at that point, but I didn't tell him he had to go through the personnel board. So that's just my question. I don't see it here, just want to understand it. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, I'm just saying I don't see it here.
And that's because we just, while working on the handbook and going through some of this, we took another look at it to be sure that we weren't going to make some mistake where, why do we do one thing one place for town employees and something different a different place for town employees?
Right.
Which just sets us up for
So many
Different
things that
rules.
seem to always want, somebody wants to set us up for.
Well, you need consistency in the same process for all employees. Except where nobody says the other board's higher.
Okay. Anything else, Tom?
Not for me. Not for me, I should say.
Very good. Well, I kind of wanted to meet with Wayne, because we got a draft for the application procedure for use of the Ashfield Town Hall. Do you have a copy in your file?
Yep.
This was forwarded by the Town Hall Building Committee. As approved by the Town Hall Building. So I guess I want to get some feedback from the Town Hall steward on what he felt was going on. If it would be all right, since we outweighted Wayne, I would like to table this.
That's fine. Did they annotate what changed from before? So that would be the new one?
I think one of the things that needs to be done here is to set up the fee schedule. Who's on the Town Hall building? Stuart Harris?
Yeah.
Stuart Harris,
Big
Nancy
co-chairs.
Garvin, Donna Scott,
Mary Quigley.
Mary Quigley, Doug Cranston. Wayne was on, and then he got off for a while, and I'm not clear if he's gotten back on. I think he has, yeah. Going back on.
I think we should probably get at least a representative from the committee and the town steward here to discuss this.
I'd like a chance to review it too.
Yeah, it's more lengthy than I thought it was.
And if that's the new one, I presume the existing one is out on the internet, so there's something to compare to.
I mean, the rates for using the hall seem ridiculously low to me for 2013. Let's make that an agenda item, make it early,
For next meeting,
next Monday. Nobody seems to have a problem with tabling this till next week.
No.
Yeah. Would you agree to? have some idea which pieces they really changed.
Well, Wayne was going to speak to that, so we'll have Wayne or someone from here.
All right. So, before too much more time clicks by here, let's before anybody else gets tired out, let's go over this special town meeting proposed warrant. I'll jump around here just a little bit, just because I want to get it, make sure that this gets taken care of, because it needs to be signed if it's going to get posted. I will tell you that as I work with Mary, digging through some of these accounts, and of course you get talking to Tom and to the police chief and so forth, this has grown into a bigger project than I thought it would be. I was thinking it would only be 2 or 3 articles, and now we're up to 7 articles, but that's all right. If it's business that needs to be taken care of, it's business that needs to be taken care of. So Article 1 was to transfer money to replenish legal expense, our town council expense. We've got that pretty much all tapped out. The original $15,000, I believe. There's a very small balance left.
Part of that, I think, was because we put 10 in because we had a $10,000 legal bill to pay, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sure
For
that's
that 15.
I'm sure that's correct.
That was the third of the 3 articles.
My brain was having trouble finding this.
Town website and computers. Same as that.
Top of the page, the little page. Oh, legal expense. I was looking for town council.
And you each should have the current expense report.
Yeah, that's what I'm taking right there.
You also have one in your folder.
Yeah, we got 390 and didn't Donna get you an update that's about $700 or so that they haven't billed us for?
I think it's more than that. I think it's over 1,000.
Was it 1,000?
I'm sure it is.
So the idea is to...
And that was, December, January, and I think up to February 15th, so.
And then Article 2, that was to set up a new account for special legal expense. And that's these legal expenses that were occurring above and beyond what we would normally call routine. Every time we have to call on some of these violations and so forth that we seem to be hammered with pretty much every week. And even sometimes I gotta believe we'll be asking town council to give us a little guidance and help, even under the public records, because some of that information we're not allowed to. It's kind of a bait and, I mean, just the way the laws are written, it's a bait and switch type deal, right? Some of these records may need to be redacted, some of the information we can't let out there. I certainly,
That sounds confusing if it's a public record, yeah.
but that's exactly what they told us at that Franklin County deal. That the gentleman from Copeland and Page went on and said that you had to be really careful. Remember, he even said that there needed to be, you're supposed to have somebody on staff that's fully qualified to do that type of thing. So we don't have somebody on staff fully qualified, but we've got somebody on the phone that should be able to help us. And then The Article 3, I came up,
Question?
go ahead.
What do we use as a gauge to figure out to put 7 in that special legal expense, since we've only got 4 months left in the year?
Well, what I went through is I dug through some of the invoices,
Okay.
and from what I could make out, I mean, Donna's invoices are fairly detailed, and I got a pretty good idea. I wasn't guessing what we were
Okay.
paying for, and it could be anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours, depending on how many people called and so forth. And so that, you know, that's $200 to $500 per complaint.
So you would be figuring, the reason for doing 7 is you believe that would last us through the end of the year if we continue to be using her services in that way.
Right.
Or Copeland and Page, whomever.
Well, Copeland and Page, I think, charges us $150, and Donna charges us $100. And, I mean, that's another thing that I want to talk about is some policies, but that's not the agenda item we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Article 3, that $3,000, that's we'll try to dream up a fancy name. I wanted something that we could use acronyms, you know, I'm never very good at that. But SPS, Special Project Staffing.
What is that?
Well, I think what we really need to do is that we've got the executive administrator or other qualified people in the office that we really had budgeted to do the day-to-day things that the town really needs to get done. And on their limited budget, we know that statutory-wise, these complaints have to be answered, right? Where everybody's doing their best to get them answered, but their other work gets set aside. So what I wanted was an account set aside that when they're working on these type of things, that take them away from their regular duty, that they would charge it to this account.
Now, that account's the one that was set up last year initially to be able to pay additional hours for town hall staff who had to work like elections and stuff like that. So you're just going to put more money
Well,
and charge other services to that,
we could,
which is
or
fine.
we could set up another account, either way.
Well, no, it's just, I was just saying, that was the first time we ever had this account, was last year's warrant.
But
Because we didn't
have.
have any place to charge those hours when they worked the extra hours for elections and the like.
But you understand what I'm
Yep,
getting at,
yep.
is that we're not getting the day-to-day work done because, hey, hopefully it's all gonna come to a prompt end, for whatever reason, but I would hope that, I mean, at some point, we've got to get the town hall staff so they have time and they're comfortable doing the work that needs to be done. And when we're doing this work that also needs to be done, we can have an account to charge. So we don't get to the 1st of May and our accounts are all drained and we don't have any work done.
Well, there's another issue that I'm aware of too. I haven't seen this number before, but we've given the staff a clear directive not to work extra hours. Mary, you're at 25 hours, is that right? And the same with clerk and other folks too. So if this sounds like something that would be beyond their 25 hours, then on their timesheet, they should put on there that they had to dip into this other account for this, because it's 25 hours are still needed to do their normal job. So my question is, there's a personnel question going on there too. We kind of said, no more working extra hours, no more working for nothing, you know, because they're not salaried positions. And I just want you to be aware, and we can change that, but we're trying here.
This is, if I was going to draw a contrast,
Yeah.
it would be to somebody that doesn't like to pay for fuel oil, and he's going away for 3 weeks in January. And he comes back and all the water pipes are broke.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know, so much time is being diverted. I mean, this may be a little off the agenda item, but being chairman, I will take that liberty. But I really believe that if it were up to me solely, my direction would be from now forward, any of these open meeting law violations that we get,
Accusations, yeah.
that we immediately ask for a 90-day extension from the Attorney General's office.
Just as protocol.
Because we have a statutory requirement to produce a budget.
Right.
And the person that we've got in our small community to do that, you know, we really rely on her for getting the numbers pulled together, doing it for not only the select board, but the finance committee, and to do research at the same time, and at the same time trying to keep up with some of the other things. That probably is a separate agenda item, but I just, after spending time in the office and talking to the people that were relying to do this stuff, and I can understand that sometimes that even though when something like this is going on, that even though you may not be spending time on that particular item, it consumes you.
Well, it does. But why don't you call it something other than the line item we already have? Why don't we call it something like open OML violation accusations or public record requests and create a new line?
I'm not married to it.
Yeah.
If somebody has a better title that they feel more accurately reflects what we're using it for, I'm all for it.
I like keeping the one we had for the purpose we had
Mhm.
before, which was deliberately for, they were working extra hours, be it annual town meeting or voting or whatever, and we needed a place to have funds to draw upon to pay them for those hours. They couldn't just be donated. And what you're talking about is something different where this is extra hours to serve a purpose that you're looking at to fulfill requirements that the state says we have to do. And if there were none of those requests, there'll be no draw on that account. But if there are, then you're trying to charge it to that if extra hours are needed to do that. Sometimes it may be fine, sometimes not.
Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears. If that's all.
Is that my understanding, is what you're saying?
You're right. No, if that's all it would take to make it stop is to vote the money, that's great.
No, and then to go. Some of this, when we have our meeting with the finance committee of things we could do to get more stuff out on the internet, may help to make some of this not be as cumbersome, but we're discussing that at that time. So that might help too.
I mean, we can post this warrant if we believe that the principle that we're after and what we're trying to do. I mean, we can always, you know, if somebody decided they wanted to put a different name on it, certainly town meeting could decide that.
It's
Oh,
almost,
okay.
it's almost like an overtime fund. In a sense, because somebody needs to do extra hours, there's nothing in the budget, and in this case, we happen to know we'd like to use it for that purpose, as opposed to the other one, which is slated towards elections and the other. It's almost like we need extra time, so you've got to have extra money.
I mean, you guys, I'm not being critical, but you're tripping over the form, and I'm thinking of the function of the $3,000.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess after I look at this a little bit, I'm thinking, we went to that Department of Revenue first meeting, and one of the things they were talking about is breaking items down too much, line items, and what would be required to take money from one item to another, whereas if you left them more broad, gave you a little bit more freedom. So I guess I'd be an advocate of leaving it the way it is right now, and if it comes up at town meeting that they want to set up a special account for this, then let the citizens of the town make that point. So I'm fine with it, because we could have another regulation or law that comes in that we wouldn't have listed under open meeting law violation
Right.
accusations.
I don't really see
And
the method of
we
the
have
two.
actually had some things that don't fall in either
Into
two
those two
major
categories.
categories, but are similar in terms
So
of.
I'm okay just with it as it is, just to let you know.
I just know that during the budget, we normally figure, just the same as we budgeted the police chief for less than what he really wanted, right? I mean, we try to keep everybody else in a tight little box. And so when these extra things come up, it makes the cheese pretty binding.
The real question is, do we as a board think we want to be able to tell the difference between these expenditures? And if we don't, then one account is fine. Because it's really a matter of additional money for additional hours, is the bottom line. And if we don't care to differentiate what the task was by two separate accounts, then we're okay.
Well, I think the key is, a couple of keys, I guess, in that discussion is that I think if we give the staff direction to keep track of what time they spend on what and which account to charge their time to, you know, if we can't trust them, we need new staff.
No, what I'm saying is, if there's only one account, you won't tell the difference from the totals.
We can go back.
But you're saying we could keep a separate tally, as we would just sub it.
Could make a subcategory. I mean, I'm sure the accountant makes right subcategories all the time.
Yeah, well, that might be the thing to do.
Sub-accounts, but in the same account.
Okay. Then that might be the better thing to do, so you could keep your 1,500 for what that purpose was and put this, and it's two separate
Right.
sub-accounts of that. Yeah, then you wouldn't, you'd always be able to find out what they were, and people wouldn't, because it's hard if you forget to write something down and it's a week later you forget.
Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer $1,000 from building inspection to elections expense. With trying to fill Lurch's seat here, the senator's seat. The town clerk says for those extra elections, it's going to be about $1,000 that will be needed. There is certainly plenty of extra money in the building inspection.
Is that the account that, oh, I know what you mean. You're not talking about this building, you're talking about that account building inspection. I'm wondering,
Right.
okay.
Right, originally
Is
there
that
was.
under Franklin County Regional?
Right, it was set up so that there were options last year.
Right, and they're actually doing it on a piecemeal basis this year, right? Isn't that right? We voted $17,500 for building inspection, and there's $12,625 left in it.
That's because FERCog changed the rate and they were only charging us $6,500. Prior to that, the year before, it had been like 32 or something like that. So that was set up so that if the town decided it would take care of building inspections on its own, it had a budget to do that.
Correct. And Article 5, that's for a matching grant for the fire department.
Oh, the note from,
Article
Yeah.
5, just
Right.
to see if the town will vote to transfer up to $3,300 from building inspection to fire department grant match. And the grant has already been approved.
It has been, and, but the town would spend the money first and then you'd get reimbursed for half of it. Dell would get a pump and a trailer with that.
Wasn't that in kind for services?
This one is not.
This isn't, okay.
Some are, but this one's
What do
When
you-
that money would come back in, that would go into the general fund.
Okay. What do you anticipate spending for the building inspection at this point in time?
not. Well, if the money that's listed in these articles is taken out, there's still a few thousands left in case at the end of the year there's any adjustment, because they're charging the 65, 66 basic.
There should be $2,000 extra after these two.
But you're sure you have all the expenses anticipated?
Well, we'd be leaving some in the account in case there's an end of the year adjustment based on building permit.
Right, because they try to achieve this pool, this
Yep.
reserve pool, when they might be coming back
They could, there's no indication that they will
Right.
at this point.
No, they're very close to
They're
budget.
very close, right,
Okay.
but we'll leave some in there in case.
Fine.
This would leave some in there in case.
And then Article 6 is also building inspection.
And this was because we set up this account because we didn't anticipate having FERCog on board.
Now, this, which I'm sorry, the building inspection.
Yeah, okay.
So the discussion comes on where we want to grab money for the tree ward. And we got $4,300 out of the building inspection. Right, which right now we have $12,625 and we've spent approximately $5.
Mhm.
So
And we had said 4,500 a ton as opposed to 42, right?
So 40, 45.
So that would be 8,800 out of the 12,000, call it 9 grand. Out of 12, that'll leave you 3,000. That may leave building inspection a little close.
It's a little tighter if you're going to the 45 instead of the 42. Seems small, but
But the contract was signed, the fee was only $6,500 for the year.
and we've paid, I think, 3 out of the 4.
4875 is what we've paid.
Right. So the difference is what we would owe. And I don't know what else would possibly charge to that if we were already paying $6,500 for the inspection program.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything either.
Well, except if there is a variance at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I have to recall the contract. It might have said the first year there would be no change and that it could come in the second year, but I don't have the contract.
And actually, it said they'd try to hold it for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
But it seemed that it probably made sense, since it's the first year for everyone, to leave a little bit there.
I think it'll work. I think it'll work fine. I mean, if you're going to be left with 3 and you've spent 5, that'll give you $8,000 to fulfill a $6,500 contract.
Say that again?
I said,
How much are you going to
if
take
you
out?
round up, like I round up, you've spent
Yeah.
5 out of a $6,500 contract.
Right.
And if we take out 9 out of the 12, that leaves us 3. So it's $8,000
Cover 50.
to cover a $6,500 contract.
And the difference is 15, so in theory, there's 15 left. Okay.
So what would that leave the account with after you've taken it out?
After we've taken it out, it's going to leave us about 3 grand, 3,500,
Yeah,
somewhere right there.
So that probably is fun. I mean, I'm sure, I expect it will be.
Mhm.
A little nervous about going all the way to the end with the first time.
I think it'll be fun. So that's what we came up with that, and then Article 7 is this business on the police department. And I told Mary this afternoon just to type up something rough and dirty, so it just says to vote to transfer a sum of money from available funds to the police department, but if, I think we got it pretty well hammered out.
Yeah, I do too.
Where are we going to take the 4 was going
From
to
the
come
tax
from the
title.
tax title. Got it. It's right there. Okay.
Do you want to say that right in here?
And $1,791, well, I think if we wait a few minutes, Mary can pop that on and
Mhm.
type it right up. We could sign it tonight before we left.
But do we want to put that definite amount in here, is my question to you, to say that 4,000 to come out of the tax title?
Transfer up to,
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's drain that cruiser account, right? That's
Right.
$1,791. And then take the balance of $2,700 out of fuel.
909.
909, take that out of fuel.
So let's say,
So it should be $6,700.
Mm-hmm.
We could make that fuel tight, given, but we'll just have to see when it gets to it.
I bet if there's only a couple of $300, we can move that, if we get down and
It would be slow.
we'll have that 60-day period at the end of the fiscal year.
make baby noises, the finance committee would probably make a change, take it from the reserve fund.
So this will read to transfer 67,000,
6,700.
6,700, sorry. I haven't done I don't think I've done from multiple lines before, so it'll take me a minute just to figure out, but we're talking about 1791 cruiser, 909 fuel, and 4K tax title.
Okay?
Between the cruiser and the fuel, it would come to 2,700.
2,700.
But since they are in different lines, I think they have to be,
Separate?
We can put them all together. You can list them all on the same warrant article.
no, we're saying warrant article, but the fuel and cruiser account, I think, have to be listed separately.
We have itemized those.
So tell me if you want to do that now or later.
You wanna, are we all in agreement that we'd sign it if it was printed? If you, we got Jen here taking,
Well, if we don't, we won't have time to get it posted, will we?
Right.
We need, what, 14 days?
Right, we have to have it posted by
Wednesday.
Wednesday morning, but we're going to have it posted tomorrow if it's ready, so.
Go ahead and do that. I think we can probably carry on.
Unless you
Probably-
need
we-
something from the
It
full.
it may not look good while we're doing it, Mary, but we'll try to carry on without
Just
it.
let me make sure I don't have something you need for where you're going next, which is,
Well, we're gonna go to that select board report.
oh, okay, because when you get to caucus and stuff, I know.
Select board report. So you guys put me in a tough position last week, but I felt like I was up for it. And I worked my hardest to try to take the two of them and push them together. And I'm not a multitasker like that, so then I pulled out a pen and I started to write. And I did actually use material that you both had. But this, we had discussed earlier about the different flavors of the two drafts
Mhm.
that you had. This one will be entirely different flavor. So,
So this is, we're talking about
This is-
for the annual report.
this is the annual report.
For the year 2012.
broad shoulders, don't hold back.
I wouldn't want my name on it. I just do not feel that's appropriate to put it as a town report and to cite citizens, mainly because we have brought upon ourselves some of the costs for legal fees and some of this ongoing churning. This board did do itself, because in some cases, all it had to do was say, we made a mistake, oops, we can fix it, we'll attend to it at a meeting, this is what we'll do from now, and report to the AG how we're fixing it. I'm not saying all, some of them, we didn't have to go to legal counsel over and over again, and we didn't have to keep things in a split. Public record request for meeting minutes that are kept in the back room that nobody can get to unless they submit a public record request, goes back to my statement to you, that we should put things on the web. If we did that, we would self-serve. So I do not believe this to be accurate or fair when we bear some of the fault for the cost and the churning. I could never put my name to that.
So you're saying it doesn't go far enough?
The board's at fault, partially, for keeping them churning. The board's at fault for not making sure those things are just down on the web and they don't have to ask and use staff time to get a copy of meeting minutes. That's absurd in this day and age. So we want to fault ourselves more heavily, but you can't fault citizens for doing what the law says they are allowed to do when we make it hard to do it.
I was asked to come up with a report, and I did go back and looked at the minutes that are on the Ashfield website. I mean, certainly that is a handy way to self-serve. I certainly understand that. There's just a lot of them that are missing.
I'm talking about more than the select board. I mean, there's all kinds of manuals and there were minutes, and they could be very easily up on the web, and people would ask to have copies and don't do it themselves.
Ron, what do
But
you?
that's just a part.
Well, we talked last week or the week before, I don't remember when, about this, and I think Paulette and I were on opposite ends of the spectrum, and I really laid down my pencil. When I said to you, you do it, you had my thoughts, you had her thoughts, I was prepared for whatever you came to the table for, because I think we're in a bit of an impasse on this, so I mean, I didn't even have to read this, and I would have said, I trust in your judgment to do it, so I'm fine.
There has to be a town report.
I wouldn't want this to say select board and have anybody in this community think that I in any way had anything to do with that. Anybody. I would not try to have to explain.
Well, I told you last week that if nobody else wanted to get behind it, that I had no problem just signing it as the chair and submitting it. I mean, that. My concern with it, I guess, is that it flowed so easily once I started, but when I looked at it, I think it has a bluntness to it that probably, I mean, I've authored quite a few select board reports over time, and there's certainly nothing made my gut ache quite as much as this one. Thank you. I think I did tone down, some of what you had. I mean, I tried to throttle that back, but at the same time, I was trying to make it. It really just reiterates everything that was reported.
Let me ask you a question. I was one of the people who asked as a citizen for a copy of something. And it was the binder of information that was brought back from the inspection program. It had 187 pages. I said, please scan it and put it on a flash drive. I don't know what the reason was, but I was told I could get 187 pieces of printed paper. So I paid for the 187 pieces of paper that staff took, stood at a copy machine, waited for it to print out paper, and then I took them and I scanned them and I put them on a flash drive for myself. I question, like I said, if we want to be honest, we have to look at ourselves as well and not just blame residents. So as a citizen, I asked, I gave the flash drive in hopes that we didn't have to go through that extra labor.
I guess I'm trying to find out where, I'm not discounting that discussion.
Okay.
I'm trying to see where that discussion ties into this select board report.
In my mind,
I mean, this is, you know, the phrase I wanted to use in here is that as far as I can tell from the select board, it has been a lost year.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think there were a number of things we did. I think there were lessons learned. I'm hoping Ron would agree that during the period of time when Ron and I were co-administrators, clearly the decision, for whatever reason, was we had no chair, we co-administered, we tried very hard to work out the agenda together. We put all the details on the agenda, so as far as transparency, everybody would know what we had in mind to discuss. Some things would be postponed. I'm hoping Ron will speak up. I thought we moved things right along
Yeah, I
in
would
terms
say,
of what we had to do.
oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I would say that it wasn't a lost year. That's harsh, personally. Was it a hard year? It was very difficult. Did we manage? We managed. We put the town's interest on the table, and we did the best we can, and Paulette and I both stepped up to the challenge. It was unfortunate that Doug resigned, but it was very hard. And at one of my first meetings, I remember saying that my objective was to meet the needs of as many people in this town as I could. And I found that I was bogged down 50% of the time with 2 or 3 individuals. And by right, under the law, they had the right to do what they were doing. And that was difficult. I had no idea, stepping into this seat, that I would be hammered the way, or we would be hammered, because we are the board. And the other boards are other boards involved to the extent that we were. And I thought that the way I had written it was just an open window, stating the facts. I wasn't accusing anyone of having malign intentions or anything like that. I was just saying we were just very much challenged. Our budgets were challenged, our personnel were challenged, because all these things are clocks, and they all tick, and then we have follow-up stuff with the Attorney General, and it's very, very difficult. And this was an anomalous year. It wasn't like this. Sure, we had an occasional open meeting law complaint or a request for public information in previous years. But if you look at the difference between this year and those years, and by the way, those years had documents missing from them also, but in a disproportionate way, this year was hammered heavy. And so, as I said before, it's not necessarily because I agree with you or disagree with you, but you had both of our documents. You had a challenge to come up with something, and it seems fair to me, but I'm just one of the 3 of us. And I'm okay with you. I've seen other town reports where it's just the chair has submitted them.
Yeah, I mean, reading this could be a lot of things. I'm not sure accusatory would be anything. It is blunt. It is blunt.
I'll be honest with you, I'm quite on top.
adult conversation about this.
No, I'm biting my tongue on your behalf. It's more than that, it's harsh. Is that what you really want the report to be for year 12?
He's gonna have to look up, see the difference between blunt and harsh.
We did a budget last year like we always do. I mean, I think some of this you could turn around into a positive way. We've learned a lot. The open meeting law is there. It's very easy to not post proper agendas. And we can get better at that. Those are easy to fix. Just because somebody calls us out, we don't have to be defensive. We can go, okay, we learned. We can do better. It's happening to other towns, we're not alone in trying to reach a higher standard
A lot of
of
others.
transparency.
A lot of others on the Titanic too, but they wouldn't help. Well, I'm gonna make one more run at it. And when I give it to you next Monday, it'll be what's in the report, remind me.
I'm okay with that, whatever it is.
I will call upon my better angels. We'll see if they answer.
It's got a certain humor to it.
No, I think it has a certain sarcasm to it. It does. But it reflects the author. It reflects the author. So, I mean, you guys certainly aren't going to agree on what either one of you wrote.
You know, I bet if we were pushed into a corner, just the two of us, we could. But just like we co-administered the town, we. But go ahead.
I'm not sure
But go
that,
ahead.
I'm not sure that the town clerk would wait that long. All right, that's what we're gonna do on that. This next Monday, I will be giving you the draft of what's gonna be, it'll already be in the town clerk's hands. All right? Any other discussion on that? All right, we already took care of the warrant for the special town meeting. How about, there's a warrant for a caucus we need to sign here?
We're taking care of the warrant, but you haven't signed it, so when you sign it, we'll go ahead and...
I thought we signed that last week. Oh, we talked about it.
3 copies to sign, as there will be with the,
The rather pledge to notify the warrant of cabinets who are qualified to vote in elections in town affairs. Tuesday, March 19th, excuse me, Tuesday, March 19th at 7 p.m. Moderator, tree warden, select board, board of assessors, finance committee, finance committee, finance committee. And an unexpired term on the finance committee? No? I guess I know whose seat that was. School committee, board of health, constable, park commission, sewer commissioner, planning board, and library trustees. Fail not and make return of this warrant with your doings.
You want to sign those too? I think that maybe 3 copies.
There you go.
There were any other unexpired terms, just yours for the finance committee.
You know, it's only 9:30.
Mary, can I have a copy of this when you're done, just so for my own information?
The next thing I had under new business is select board policies. Just a few things that I wanted to touch on. One, what's our formal policy on using town council? Whoever uses town council in town has to get permission from the chair?
Well, I'll say what I know, Paula will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. When Doug came on as chair, I thought he was continuing a policy that said any access to town council had to go through the chair of the select board. When things broke down and Doug left, both Paulette had access to town council. So I believe it goes through the chair. That's the way I think the protocol was. Is that correct, Paulette?
And if I recall, that was put in place, a couple of years ago, just so that someone would at least know town council was being used, as opposed everybody could call.
Yeah.
Anybody, anywhere, anytime, any place, any board, any committee.
I really feel
So
that
that's
would be a
So-
nightmare.
So that's why that was put in place, as I recall. It wasn't so much that members of the select board, all three were running giddy to town council, but it was to try to get a handle to make sure somebody knew if there were some issues, somebody needed to use the service because it tied to a budget, as I recall.
Well, it may be just a good time to reinstate the policy, is that requests for anyone in town government to access town council needs to get permission from the chair. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is you could have somebody from the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission and somebody else all calling town council on the same thing.
Exactly. The other part that I would like to see, and I think Ron has expressed it at some time, it would be great, at least for ours, unless we're going to do it for all votes, that the questions to town council were in writing and the answers came in writing. You have a place to look. Things that are done just over the phone, back over the phone, translated to the phone. If we're going through the process of spending money to ask questions, I think they should go out in writing and come back in writing so you can say, here, this is what the answer was. This is what the question was. And I seem to remember Ron and I having similar conversations about that, where it seemed the right thing to do for that kind of service, expense, whatever you want to call it.
There is a value to that because the board rotates, and there are some questions that we've had that I'm sure others have had in previous terms. And so it'd be really nice if Mary, and I know she does have a directory called Legal Advice, got something on what was required for an executive session. What you had talked about with the AG. When we get that information back, we should run it by town council just to make sure we're okay with it. And then it gets filed under the regarding, and then we have that knowledge. It doesn't mean that I'm not necessarily saying that every single conversation that the chair has to be in writing, but if there's a formal answer to a formal request, it makes sense that it be in writing. It really does, in my mind. It's like an attorney's opinion. Yeah, you paid for it, you might as well get it in writing.
There's some truth to that. I think in an effort for full disclosure, I do think sometimes when you're talking to, when you're communicating with council, that I think sometimes you can preload the decision, by discussing ideas that may not always, as long as they're in the best interest of the town, they don't necessarily need to be in print, but trying to find a solution to a problem. But I think in a lot of different ways, I think especially since it is rotating, who knows who will be sitting here. that there'd be something solid to refer back to, so that would.
It's like it's paying for the same information more than once.
Right.
How about a motion reinstating the policy that access to the town council needs the permission of the chair? Reinstating that policy.
I'll make it.
You'll make that motion?
I'll make a motion that all committees and boards accessing town council seek prior permission from the chair of the board, of the select board.
I don't think it was ever gone. It's just when it was just the two of us.
We had
If
to-
reinstating it is what we want to call it, that's
It doesn't
fine.
hurt. It doesn't hurt.
No.
It's
Second.
easier than trying to look back to 1962 when maybe they made it the first time.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
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 One thing, let go, sorry. Aye.
Did you want to vote on that?
No, I said aye.
You did, okay, so it
Yep,
was
aye.
unanimous.
It's okay.
Here's the next question. Who's legal counsel? I see that we've got invoices from Donna McNichol's office, and we also have invoices from Copeland and Page.
Yes, for good reason. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. To the best of my knowledge, it's Donna McNichol and Toombs. But there have been several contracts in the county that she has reviewed and served as counsel. So in those cases where there could be an apparent conflict, we've gone to...
Avoided it.
Right.
We've done that in some cases that didn't have to do with contracts too, with at least one open meeting law. We got a
That might have
response
been-
from Donna, and then,
It might have been at the beginning, but towards the end, we've started moving in that direction.
right, it's just covered a few things.
Copeland and Page has been around a long time. I mean, they've been doing this for...
Just like for the finance committee, it was recommended, it doesn't hurt to change.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to changing. I mean, the times I've talked with Copeland and Page and we saw them, I'm not saying there was anything wrong with Donna, but it doesn't hurt after so many years to make a change and see if their approach may be different. I don't know.
Personally, I'm open to that too, but I think it's a formal process where you get 3 candidates. They're professional services, so you don't treat them like, technical people necessarily, but I think it's important to put it out there and see what they have to offer and make a decision based on that. So I think it's a good idea to renew relationships or explore other relationships all the time.
The other part I like is they serve different communities. So if you changed from the current town council to a different town council, that group of towns they're serving, you get the benefit of whatever's going there. And we've been working in this pool for a long time. So that's the other reason. Maybe they all have the same problems, I don't know.
Go from the kiddie pool to the cesspool or vice versa, right?
I don't want to go there.
Okay. Well, I wanted, but for the most part, really, our town council, I agree that it needs to be kind of a formal thing, and it actually would have to be a project that we'd undertake if we were going to change town council.
And there's also no reason, in my mind, that if a topic comes up and we say we'd like to ask somebody else, it doesn't preclude our doing it because we decide we want to. I mean, you can use more than one doctor, you can use more than one attorney.
I'm just a little cynical on the whole deal. Lawyers are bred to argue with each other, so when you're asking for two different places for 2 different opinions, you'll probably get them.
Oh, I didn't mean it that way. I meant something could come to us that we say we want to ask a different attorney just to not ask the same one we've always asked on a certain topic, just to, see what the answer is, not necessarily asking both at the same time.
The other, policy question I have, and it's just something that I've been thinking about since the night of the election. You know, I came in shortly after they counted the results. The town clerk grabbed me right away. I wrote my resignation. She swore me in. I mean, she's very efficient. If nothing else, our municipal clerk is very efficient. She swore me in. She had a key in my hand so fast, and you're a key man now, here you go. And the question that got asked was, do you want access to the secured offices? And I thought about it for just a second, and I said, for Christ's sakes, no, I wouldn't want. I just don't know what I would need to get in. So I guess my question is anybody else using access to those offices?
The back room where Mary is was known as the Select Board room. I have a code, I think Ron had a code, and I've never used the code, but occasion could arrive where we're supposed to be in the Select Board room for some reason, and you'd want to be able to get in without setting off all the alarms. Other than that,
I guess my feeling was, first I said no, and then I was thinking about, well, should I or should I not? And what I relate to is if the town clerk, municipal clerk, was an elected town clerk, and they were having their office in, their home, I would have no authority to go in there and, to paw through stuff, or, to get records and that sort of thing. If the tax collector was an elected tax collector, then they were doing business in their home, I wouldn't want or have authority to go in there to do that. And that was just, same thing with the treasurer, is that, I just guess I wanted to inform you that I don't have access. I don't think, there's other rooms here that we have free and clear access to, just like coming in on the weekend and look at the warrant when it's laid out. So it was just something that bothered me that I just wanted to see, but if nobody's accessing it anyway, that's fine.
And just to speak to the, I think that back office was once the select board office. Now it's many different things. It's the accountant space, we keep warrants there, we keep some personnel stuff there. I keep some select board stuff there, but also many other things for the town business as well. So I think that has changed.
I have never executed the password. In fact, I don't even think I have a password to that. I think we have the authority to do anything we want to do, basically, because we're the executor of the town. But there's never, what am I going to do when I'm in there? I need Mary to point me in a certain direction anyways. We have open hours when she's around. She's working a lot of closed hours, too. And so I just try to coordinate. Having that room over there is very, very handy to me because I have access to the internet. And I can get a lot of business done waiting on Mary or waiting on the clerk, and it's warm in the winter and so on and so forth. So I have accessed that room very frequently, but never through the security. I don't have a need for anything over there.
Well, it was just something that came to my mind that I thought I should discuss instead of just wondering about what the deal was. Okay. It's closing in on 10 o'clock, and we've got to be here again on Monday. So Wednesday, I'm sorry. Let's get this warrant signed. Not signed this. All right, we just spent time making a decision about it. How many copies do you need here, kid? 3 signed?
3, sorry, yep.
6,700, that's what we were aiming for.
Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Do we need a date or anything?
Dave, did you think you had an appointment on the personnel evaluation thing tonight? Because I didn't have it on the agenda. Oh, I
I just
certainly,
dropped in to say hi.
Oh,
How you doing?
I just,
And I brought Dave's email in the mail so we can set an agenda item.
Yeah, I just sent it and said whenever you have time to put it on the agenda, just let me know.
thank you for the flexibility.
That's all.
Thanks.
All right, let's fire through some minutes. Minutes of February 18th. This is last week. This should be really fresh in our minds, shouldn't it?
Mary, these minutes here aren't any different than the ones I would have had, correct?
They may be.
Last minute's not
No,
good.
I'm just trying to remember. I think they came to me, I made a few changes, and then I guess I emailed those to you.
Yeah, I didn't see any changes. I mean,
You looked?
I
Because
looked,
last
but you
minute
should
was
look
too
if you're...
hard.
Which minutes are we
I mean,
referring to?
I went through all the
The
ones
18th.
that were emailed, I went through very carefully the copies I had. So
I
I
maybe-
hope they don't show up again in another revision.
No, I maybe made copies for your files in case somebody didn't bring them. It's always
Okay.
hard to know what
That's,
people want to have or not have.
So the minutes I'd like to take up right now are the ones dated February 18th, 2013. It's a pleasure.
I'm fine with them, actually. We got off to a little rough start just because you hadn't received our comments back and such, but it was nice reading through these kind of with a standard way of doing it, so I'm fine. I have not a single mark on this February 18th.
I do.
Okay.
On the document, on the last page, could I have you spell my name correctly? Leukhardt. Do we want to or need to, after Tom Carter, put that he's chair on the minutes? Is that this question, not a statement? If we think we should,
I think
that
we
needs
should.
to be there. Down at the bottom, the last paragraph, it says annual town report as a offered, an offered, A-N instead of just A.
Right.
On the last paragraph down here where it says, second line, report as a offered replacement. I think it's an offered replacement. Grammar. Document, okay, now turn the page, and I'm on the fourth line. I'd like us to find another word. Document request against town boards, from town boards, because the document request is not against a board.
Where is that, please?
I'm on the second page, the fourth line down,
Okay.
about 2/3 of the way across.
Should be document requests from town boards.
So complaints against and requests from,
Well, actually not from the town board, I did that.
or requests for,
Okay.
requests of.
Request of.
And I think it would be good to say numerous OML complaints. It's not just people writing in and saying, oh, I don't like you.
You don't want to write it all out?
OML's fine with me.
It's
If
okay.
you're comfortable with you,
It's okay.
it's okay with you.
I don't know. We had the discussion yesterday on what looked better written all the way out. And what didn't. Oh, I know, it's good with me.
What we yesterday?
Huh?
What we yesterday?
Not yesterday, I say yesterday, I meant last week.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter a protocol. Every time you use an acronym the first time, just say here and after OML. Just because you don't know who's going to be reading it later. And then use OML always, you know.
And mostly, actually, we've been using open meeting law complaint just for clarity, but.
Yeah.
I take it as you're listing these off, you're requesting these all as amendments. All that. You're not saying so, but that's what I'm hearing.
Well, this
Is
said
that what you're saying?
draft, so I thought there would be a final version as opposed to.
I really think
Or do you just
that we
want
can,
it marked up?
I think if we sit right here and we say we amend it,
Okay.
and we can say
We've done that before.
accept them as amended.
And, well, they're marking it up, so it'll go in the book with the markup on it by hand. That's fine, other ones do it.
What we've done, I know many times in the past and lots of minutes, is it'd be written on it, amended as corrected, but a clean copy would be made and put into the.
Sure, but that's what, I'm not expecting us to bring this up. With the changes that you've got, I don't see any material changes so far.
I guess what I'm saying is whatever we agree to, whether, I'm uncomfortable having it go back and forth and we don't see the final copy. So I'm okay if they want to write on it, and it's got a little pen mark on it, and we approve it, and that goes in the book. But when it leaves, it goes back and it gets retyped and it doesn't come back, we don't see it again. And I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong, I'm just saying
But
anything can
This
happen.
when it
this
says
is much
amended as
better.
corrected, it would only be the corrections that were made by the board in the meeting. There would be no other changes.
No, I realize that's the intent. I'm just saying when it leaves and it goes through one more cycle, it left here, it wasn't what we had on paper when we.
All that,
But do we
I'm not
need it?
being facetious. I'm just trying, I get a question, a simple question for you. Who do you trust?
I'm not
I mean,
saying
at some
trust
point, we got to
anybody.
trust somebody to just
It's
take
not
care of
trust.
it.
I've seen other minutes, what I'm saying, from other boards where when these small changes, they just mark them on it and it goes that way. It doesn't have to go back and be retyped again. And it's done. That's all I'm saying, so it's finished.
If we can get it done, I'm all about it.
Well, that's all I was trying to say. If you go in there and you look, I've seen them. Board of Health has done them, Personnel Board has done them, and when they find these little things, they go in and they really just make a pen mark for the change. If it was big and substantive, they have to do something.
I see, we would have to have a new copy anyway. This says draft on it, which was a request of the board that they come with draft on it.
That's right.
But we would go back in and make a clean copy that didn't say draft anyway, so.
It's fine, if we wanted to expedite it, we wouldn't have to put it through another cycle of typing it again and then going back and getting it done. One thing we could do that I've seen is at the top as part of the standard, you could put approved and there's a space to put the date, and then there was a place to put the voting. And so at the top, it was typed out with the blank areas, and then you just fill it in, it was done. I was going to recommend that.
How about this?
But
as
it's
a
not about
compromise?
trust, it's
How
not
about
about trust.
just a
We can
compromise?
be done with some of these things.
Make approve them as amended, and attach this to the document list, the one that has the chicken scratch on it, you know, with the pen marks on it, so that it becomes a formal document in and of itself, so that we can always refer back to it. It becomes a formal document, and then allow them, because I don't want to see one show up on the website with chicken scratch on it. You know.
Okay.
I want a clean copy with that
Okay.
draft. But this way, we save the one copy with our edits on it, and I don't mind signing the one copy or doing something like that as something to kind of memorialize what our changes were.
That's fine.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't trust anybody, I was just thinking we could expedite some of these things, but I understand what you mean about the chicken scratch.
So you have copies over there, Mary, of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
And you're writing right on. Do you understand what I'm saying
Yes,
about
and
a
you're
draft
saying
copy?
you would
of the
attach this, there'd be the minutes in the document list, and then this would go as part of what goes into the book.
And somehow you would denote on the top of it that those were the edits, the final edits. And so if I was to look in your select board folder for that date, I would find that document, and I could compare it to the final that showed up on
That's
the
right.
web.
So on this list, number 6 would become the rough draft
Right.
with the changes marked in pen,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
Sure. It becomes a document on itself. I think that would solve a lot of problems going forward, because I understand what Paulette's saying, I really do. And this way we have an official document that goes in the folder. that
So
we can
number
compare
6, draft minutes with corrections.
With corrections. And you might even say final draft or something.
Approved.
Approved.
Approved draft, how's that, with
Okay.
corrections?
Good.
Anyway, so what I was getting at is very top, they had an area where all you did is fill in the blanks. And so there was a place to put the approved date and a place to put the vote, and you just filled in the blank and it was done. It was kind of interesting. Okay. If we're going to have a template and do more of the same things.
So such
Do
a
you have any
state.
other changes that you want to make? 'Cause I couldn't find one in there that got my attention.
I
It
think
sounded
the-
like it was pretty accurate.
The chair is a good idea, because I've gone through all the select board minutes, and I would have liked to have known it was a chair. So
I mean, I don't have a problem with the changes that have been put out here, but
Good.
No, good.
you got it.
I go.
I'll make a motion to accept February 18th minutes as amended.
Second.
Included.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Had the opportunity, I wasn't going to allow any more discussion on it. It's a wonderful life. Every time minutes are approved, another angel gets its wings. Let's head for February 6th. February 6th, 2013.
I'd always put chair beside Tom Carter, and I'd put him first in the listing, just as a protocol of the chair.
February 6th, when we started, I wasn't the chair.
Ah, there you go.
He gets voted in, right?
Right, so I'll forget that.
Now, there shouldn't be very many changes to this because we discussed this last week at length.
Last time I said I was fine with it, all that kind of bunch of corrections, so I'm going to go first.
I wouldn't make a change here, but if we were to do it again, I probably would capitalize the T for Technology Committee on the second page if we ever do them in another place.
It's easy to do.
But I would redo all these minutes for that.
The T but not the C.
Redo both, sure. But I would, you know, if that's the only thing we could,
Just got to take the watermark off anyways, right?
oh, that's true. So, sure. Might as well do it. Then I guess if you're gonna have to print it again anyway, then on the first page, I noticed wherever it says Select Board, where it's completely in caps, I don't think we have to have all the letters in caps, just.
No,
SMB.
that was a find and replace error until I learned a better way to do find and replace.
So if it's,
I was using the wrong part of find and replace, so it could.
camel cases, they call it, is there?
What's that?
Well, they call it camel case when you're upper lower. Upper lowercase one.
Where was that? All that?
Oh, the only one I found was on the first page, but then I didn't look for any more. It was about down under liaison,
Okay.
and it was, my copy here that I had was the whole select board was all in caps.
On the first page.
Yeah.
And actually, so that may be a slight difference because that
Oh, I
was the
see
one.
it. I see it on
Do
the
you see
second
it?
page.
Well, you found one on the second, oh, there's another one on the second page, yeah.
Because that was the one thing I knew had not worked out right, so.
So we could do a change all there.
I don't have a change, I was just testing my memory. Paulette, why did you abstain when we made you vice chair?
Because she don't want to vote for herself.
We just thought, you know, you should do it for yourself.
Really? I vote for myself all the time.
I think from a protocol point of view, it's okay to do it, but that's your
Well,
I
choice.
just didn't
Okay,
want,
I
I said, geez, I hope she didn't feel like we railroaded her into it after.
Well, I had 2 out of 3, so I thought it was okay.
Was that, you okay?
I just thought sort of, you know. Did we, under old business, have to vote on that liquor licensing renewal?
No, we don't have to sign it.
We just had to sign it, okay. And the citizens' comments that I still have they been refined down to what, I mean, it was public forum and it's not supposed to be so elaborate, just somebody spoke. It's not supposed to have all the detail about what they said.
Yeah, we did kind of end up with that it was the
Yeah,
sentence.
but when we had that discussion last week with Jen and said going forward.
Oh, okay.
I thought we were going to take this out. I know Ron and I talked about
That
it.
is not the understanding that I had. The understanding is we gave Jen direction going forward.
Doesn't matter to me, but there is a select board in there that's all caps too.
I mean, this is,
Oh, I know why. There was a first go-round with November 6th, and it was Ron and I, and we weren't here. And that's when we talked about taking it out, which is
well, I remember we talked about it last week.
when we talked about it again.
Looks to me like it's pretty accurate.
That's
You all
all
set,
I've got.
Paula?
That's all I've got.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept February 6 minutes as amended.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'll dig back into the archives, especially you two, but we went over these last week. These should be all set. They even say final on them.
Actually, they say draft final.
This is January 23rd.
I didn't have anything substantive about that.
I don't find, no, I didn't find any other changes in this one.
Okay. Rush it, but you want to make
We
that?
want to make a motion. Ron's feeling like he's got all the burden of the world on his shoulders.
I'm just trying to share. I move that we accept the minutes of January 23rd, 2013,
Second.
as is.
Second.
Yes. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstained from that one since I wasn't there. All right, beautiful. I think we've had a pretty good night, all in all.
Ask a question along the line of minutes. We just had the school committee meeting the other night. Mary, that should be pretty short and sweet, right? I mean, if we wanted to, we could just make a quick copy of the PowerPoint presentation.
Jen already has the tape and notes that it really will begin. There's just a sentence before the two boards met separately
Yeah.
about the material, about material.
Do you include the PowerPoint presentation in that as a document? Just as a document?
We have a printout, Colette made a printout, a handout, so that.
Makes sense, too. I know we meet twice a week, and I'm nervous about getting behind, so.
So we have a meeting Wednesday night. Finance committee. We got police department.
Fire. General government, library moved up because
Flashing lights and sirens.
people did be away, ambulance, EMT, no, EMT we did.
We're doing library Wednesday?
Yeah,
You said it moved up? And ambulance?
and ambulance, and
Highway?
fire, and police. I don't think highway is in that group.
That's next week.
Oh, it's the fall. Police, fire, general government, library.
Flashing lights and sirens on Wednesday night. It ought to be exciting.
Flashing the shows.
All right, any reports, liaison reports?
I'll go quick. I went to the FERCog recent meeting on four-legged creatures or whatever it was, and I really should have grabbed Warren. This is the only handout they had. I told Paulette I'd get her something there, but it was actually pretty enlightening for me to go, and I wish I did have the forethought to ask Warren to join me, because I learned a lot about the whole process of the animal control officer. They actually had a person from the state organization show up at that. So I'm not a liaison for that, I just went to that meeting. That was,
I remember you
It's
saying
pretty
it was the
interesting.
most fun you were going to have.
oh yeah, it was a blast. But it is changing this year, and there's certification that's required, and there's some significant statewide changes in that law, just to pass that on. The second thing I have is just a report. I didn't go to a meeting on this, but it was this is the building inspection program at FERCog. And we get these monthly, if you want to go down the merit there. And this is what I was just saying, we're pretty close to budget. How you read this is you look across January, we're at 189, 926. This is FERCog, not us. And the target, the cumulative target was 198, so they're within 5% of it. This is the high reserve target, the 92,000, that once they exceed that fund, then money gets returned to the town, and they've built it up to 62,000, so I'm pretty pleased with the
The
way
idea
it's
is once the
going.
bucket fills up to 92,000, it equally flows back to the communities. In some,
Excess.
right,
Excess,
yes, once
right.
that bucket's full to 92,000.
Right.
And, I'm sorry, did you say this is FCCIP?
Yes, it is. So that's just to keep you guys abreast of what's going on there. And I do have a question. It's not really an agenda item of the chair, but there are a lot of things that we've been dealing with last year that need to be brought up in a little bit, more like thumbnail sketches than anything. We have a retention wall at Sanderson that I was going to be bringing forth to the board. I've been dealing with Alden Gray on that. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Another thing is relative to the dam at Ashfield Lake. There's some maintenance issues we need to talk about. So as time allows, these are potential budget-related issues. Maybe it comes after the budget, because I don't think there's going to be much breathing room anyways. But they do need to come to the surface at some point. And there are a few other things out there too, just to keep you informed. The retention wall is basically pointing south towards Higginson's.
I think we should always talk about them earlier than later. I wouldn't, something
Okay.
that we know we should talk about, even if we can't do anything about it.
Well, then I'll
So
make
put it
a
on the
request
agenda.
to put it on the agenda for next week or the week after, whatever you, I don't really care when, just let me know and I'll be prepared to bring it up then.
Here's do you have any liaison?
The two I had, we already did, because I had one for the police and one for the fire department, and we covered both of them. And I had the one for personnel, but we did that as well.
All right, we gotta get that on the schedule in the next month, too.
It what?
Personnel to go through that,
Oh, yeah, we'd want to have Tom come to the board right away, meet with us, so he can
no,
get that
I'm
thing.
talking about the,
Oh, what, it just got turned in for the review process.
The evaluation
The
form?
evaluation form, okay. And we're still working, we'll be meeting again tomorrow too. Yeah, today is Wednesday, right? No, today's Monday, I've lost my week. On Thursday, the personnel board will be meeting again, because we're working through that whole personnel policy manual.
the
Getting it up to
review that came through on the email, I reviewed that, and it's probably as pretty as any as I've seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of really pretty review forms. The challenge is not the form, it's actually doing the review and having somebody to do that and do it in the manner that's correct, which takes a bit of coaching. It's not a saying, this is how you have to do, this is what you have to do, damn it, do it. You gotta have a coaching, and somebody's gotta be trusted to do that coaching properly, but not necessarily preload.
Right.
All the things. Of all the reviews that I do, I mean, certainly you guys may do more reviews than I mean, I do 20 to 30 a year with people. The biggest part of the review is really the goal setting for the next year and grading that. That's what, and I mean, we can discuss that when we discuss that form, but I guess I was disappointed in the amount of space allowed, although you could add as many pieces of paper to it as you wanted to talk about setting goals. I think that's always, it's the funny thing about doing reviews. It is the task every year that I hate the most looking forward to, but really, it might be the task I enjoy the most doing. It's like, well, you know. I mean, does that make sense to you?
It
Is
is.
that, you know, a month ahead of time, oh God, I gotta make time for this, you know? Shouldn't I really take some time off or do something, you know, and try to find every other excuse, but once I start it, I find that and I think most people walk away saying, hey, it wasn't so bad.
When we go through it, one of it was, look at it from both sides. You're the person who's helping do a review for somebody else, and you're the recipient of, you're sitting there and somebody's reviewing you, so we tried to come at both sides. But it was brought to the board so the board could weigh in, you want more space, you want more this, whatever. And we were concerned about not making it too complex, or it might never get done. Because someone would say, well, that's gonna take too much time, so, but
the
that's why
biggest
it's
thing
coming
is
to the
have-
board
is
to
have
figure
people-
out.
Is to have people do it, and then you have to find out,
Right.
you know, you have to say, well, you supervise, you know, A supervises B, so you have to do that, you know, it takes a little while to get everybody. And at some point, the select board has to do some reviews, and that certainly could be a challenge. That's all right.
My concern is a different concern. I've seen the form, I'm basically okay with the form is a form. My concern from an evaluation point of view, the very first thing I do with everyone in my company is I grab their job description. Their current job description is agreed to by the partners in the firm. And then I see, are they living up to it, are they not, so on and so forth. And I think we have some, although I have no issues with the evaluation form, I think we have some approvals to do on job descriptions, because just going through what I could go through in the various places, if I look at the executive administrator, which was named from 2007 to 2010 to 2012, I start seeing lines for approval of that job description, but I don't see any approval. So, and they're very different. So we need to, we can agree on the form, but before I start or get involved with the process, I need to say, what is an executive administrator? And I know that we recently went through the process and hired Mary, but I never authorized the job description, and I haven't seen it anywhere. I've looked through minutes and I haven't seen it. But maybe
Did
I'm
that
wrong.
happen before you were on the board?
Maybe
That's
it
what,
did.
yes, because there was one, and it happened before, and then that
But I
became
just
the
haven't, I
long
didn't see the
process.
signatures of the board on it.
Because I know it came to the board and had to
Okay.
be approved, but that's a
But
good,
that's-
that's a good
I
question.
mean, you talk about thumbnails of things that need to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, they need, by not being done, it's a real disservice to the employees, probably as much as it is
Yeah.
the town.
Well, the good intentions there, it's just putting the nail in the coffin.
And don't misunderstand me, I mean, it's a fine form,
Yeah.
you know, but the form itself is, you know,
It's a
they all
form.
look nice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it through the right eyes, a 1099 looks fun.
And one of the things the person on the board has been paying attention to is job descriptions. Some were done by prior select boards, then some, like when new hires have come on, keep going through them. And eventually, the next thing would be to pick up some that haven't been done and make sure that, you know, it's not 15 years old or 10 years old and somebody's doing
That's a
something
problem with our form of government.
And
is
then we
that
bring
every
it
board,
back here.
if one person changes, then the whole dynamic can change, and there's nothing you can do about it.
But they'll all come back here
Uh,
for the board to make sure they agree.
Yep. So, did you have anything else liaison-wise? I mean, you said we took care of that.
No, we've hit upon them at different times this evening.
Okay, good. Mail, I have mail. I have a letter addressed to Tom Carter, Chairman, and I think I've seen my colleagues also open the same letter. And it's from Cheryl Jordan, and I am going to, it's funny, the envelope, it is funny. The envelope's addressed to Tom Carter, Chairman, Ashfield Select Board, but it is addressed, the letter actually is Select Board Member Ron Kohler. But Ron, you wouldn't mind if I read it into the minutes as she requests?
I just don't know the wisdom in that. Why would you just read any letter in that anyone writes?
I would normally read most anybody's.
You're welcome to
Especially since you requested it. I mean, I've known Sherry Jordan for years and years. I mean, I was just probably barely out of my diapers when I was first pumping gas for Sherry Jordan, so. It says, Dear Select Board Member Ron Kohler, This letter is in response to something you implied during the select board meeting on the 6th of February. Having missed the meeting, I strongly feel that I need to set the record straight. It sounds as if you did not know I worked in the administration at the University of Massachusetts for 34 years, and that in recognition of my excellent job performance, I received the Chancellor's Citation Award. While I was on several committees working with the president of the university, I interviewed potential employees, updated job descriptions, and advised department heads. I also created internal account numbers for federal, state, foundation, and private donations received by the Amherst campus and taught 30 clerks in my department specific computer programs. This required some ability. So if you had bothered to ask me if a complaint or a letter was mine, I would have answered you. My signature would never be on any document I did not authorize, and I would never sign a blank sheet of paper. Yes, I choose to have someone help express my thoughts and edit my writing. I believe I have that right. Asking for assistance, advocacy, or support does not make a citizen any less credible as far as I am concerned. And I expect an elected official sitting across from me in town hall at the select board's table to leave their personal feelings outside when conducting town business. Remember, you represent every last person in Ashfield, not just those you agree with, socialize with, or work with. I expect to have this letter read into the minutes during the select board's meeting, along with an apology for your remarks. I am not aware of any state or federal law that prohibits a senior citizen from seeking assistance and support when they wish to exercise their rights. So me reading it into the minutes, I want to preclude that as maybe I didn't read it with enough detail until I said it out loud. Just because I read it in doesn't mean that I am saying that you should or shouldn't apologize, but I'm just reading the letter in. Very truly yours, Cheryl Jordan, Ashfield, Mass. Probably want to keep a copy of this for the document list. Whatever that's worth, that's the mail.
There is another one that came to Ashfield Select Board members.
I didn't have that on mine.
No, actually, because I have some things here, but those are addressed to each individually, so I put them unopened in your files.
Is this the one that was by email last
It is.
last week by the
it's
time I got home?
I believe it is, although it might be
Can you
so.
see that?
We
I was
do.
reading.
It'd be better if I kept my hand out of the way then.
No, it's okay.
Is this the public records request?
Sorry.
This is the one I saw on my
It
email.
was an email, okay, I have to go back.
Last Monday. And we got done pretty early.
So you all have that, and you've seen it, and it's okay.
This was just, I had,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think the only other thing, at 10:30, I think would be long enough. I had alluded to earlier, when we were talking about policies and so forth, about since we have these budgets to get completed and all this work to do, if there were any more open meeting law violations, I wouldn't think that we could do it with public records requests, but with open meeting law violations, about immediately asking for a 90-day extension so we can get through this budget process. That, this waiting till the 13th day and then wanting a 7-day extension and then still having all the other work to do on the front side. That's an idea I had, fire away and comment, but I would think it would be, there would be a certain amount of wisdom in at least asking for that variance.
Are they capable of doing a 90-day?
Let's ask them.
I know they've given 14-day.
Yeah, I can't imagine 90 days. I mean, I don't have an issue doing it,
Well, we have,
trying it.
we certainly have an obligation in the next 90 days to present and get a budget passed.
Right.
And I am having a terrible time getting to it, and as you mentioned earlier, there are so many other regular business things that I have not gotten to. And as you mentioned, the open document requests, which do keep coming in frequently, I have a number of them last week, those are on a very short timeline, and there, as far as I've discovered, is not an extension request mechanism right now.
I'm up for a try, if we can. I'd make a motion if we're all in agreement to try. If the worst that could happen is I say no, right? I mean, we're trying our darndest to not have those.
Would we fare better asking them what the longest time? I mean, you hate to ask for 90 days and they go, oh, yeah, I'll give you 7. Or you might say, what could we have as a longer period of time because we're right in the middle of budget to see if they don't give us something better?
I don't have a problem with that either.
Is that a safer question?
It can be safe, but if you don't get anywhere, I mean, the flip side of that is ask for 20 days and they would have given you 50.
So you ask for 90, the worst they say is no.
At least it starts the discussion.
I
I mean, if we
wouldn't
get a hold of the right person at the Attorney General's office, as sick of it as the town of Ashfield is, it may fly through without. I mean, we have a statutory responsibility to this budget, and, you know, the Department of Revenue would certainly hold our feet to the fire.
For sure.
For sure.
You can ask. But if they don't want it, they'll tell you what the longest is they'll give you, I'm sure.
So
I would expect.
So I'll use my chairman's authority to advise the administrator to, when that happens. Do you feel authorized, Mary?
I do.
Good. I like that. All right. Any other business? Is there?
One thing, real quick. Isn't there a pressing need for an executive session coming up?
Not too pressing.
Not too pressing, it's a complaint related. I'm not going to go into detail.
It was a letter. We got it about a
Yeah.
month ago.
I'm just concerned that I keep getting repeats.
Well, I think what you got is an open document request, which is sort of a different,
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, it is a
Okay, you're
different
right,
track.
right.
Yeah.
Related but different.
Okay.
And that,
Well, why
that,
don't-
but that didn't
why
go
don't I
to,
make sure
that went
that
to somebody else.
Ron got one.
Mary,
Yes?
next time I walk into the office, which will be this week, shake me
Right.
and make sure I understand what this is, because God knows we wouldn't want to really talk about things in English so people would know, but we'll translate later.
You do know, but I'll remind you.
Right. I mean, it's, a lot of times, one person's priority is not necessarily mine. My wife will tell you that all the time, all day long. Public comment, has anybody got anything that they are dying to share? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourning at 10:31, Eastern Standard Time. Beautiful. See you back here on Wednesday. Wednesday, yes. Huh? You thought it was Wednesday
Well,
today?
remember he said tomorrow, we're gonna go to the
Oh,
I go, oh, no.
all right. Yeah, Wednesday night.
That's good.
Holiday.
The assessor's gonna meet at 6. No.
They're gonna meet at 6 to accommodate us?
Well, to accommodate me, yes.
Those assessors are nice people.
Ted
No
was,
matter what taxpayers say about them.